Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a design feature that is, and I mean this literally, all around you. It's on your phone, your desk, your tools, but you've probably never even noticed it. It's a true unsung hero that makes our world safer, stronger, and, well, just plain easier to put together.
So let's start with something we've all felt. You're walking past a counter, you brush up against it, and ouch! You get that nasty little scratch from a sharp corner. That simple 90-degree angle, it seems so harmless, but it can be a real pain.
And it's not just about getting a little cut. You know, in the world of engineering and design, sharp corners are a huge problem. They don't just scratch you, they're also really weak and chip easily. They make trying to assemble parts a total headache, and they create these tiny stress points that can turn into big cracks down the line. That corner is basically a failure just waiting to happen.
So what do you do about it? How do designers fix this really common problem? Well, they use a brilliantly simple solution that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time. So let's meet the hero of our story, the chamfered edge.
Okay, so what in the world is a chamfer? It's actually super simple. It's just a flat, slanted surface you get when you slice off a sharp corner. Instead of that harsh 90-degree angle, you get this clean, sloped transition. Most of the time, it's cut at a neat 45-degree angle.
Now, you might hear people talk about a chamfer's close cousin, the fillet, and they do similar jobs, but they're totally different. A chamfer, that's our flat, angled cut. It gives you a straight, beveled edge with sharp lines. A fillet, on the other hand, is rounded. It's a smooth, curved cut with no sharp angles at all. So think angular versus curvy.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because their differences go way beyond just looks. A chamfer is all about practicality, making assembly easier, getting rid of those sharp edges. A fillet is often brought in to reduce stress, making a part stronger where it counts. Visually, a chamfer looks crisp, angular, kind of modern. A fillet feels softer, more rounded. It's a perfect example of form following function. Right, but this simple little cut isn't just about making things look nice. It has some seriously important jobs to do. So important, in fact, that we're going to call them a chamfer's 3 superpowers.
And if you ever look at technical drawings, you'll see this number pop up all the time. 45 degrees. It's the classic, the go-to angle for a chamfer. And why is that? Well, because it hits the perfect sweet spot between strength, safety, and just being easy to make. It just works.
This quote really nails it. It's a 2-for-1 deal. First, it protects you from the object, so you don't get hurt. And second, it protects the object from itself by getting rid of those weak points. I mean, how efficient is that? It's just smart design.
Okay, let's break down that first superpower, safety and comfort. This one's the most obvious, right? By slicing off that aggressive point, you turn a hazard into something that's actually comfortable to hold and touch. It's the difference between a tool handle that fits perfectly in your palm and one that just feels sharp.
Superpower number 2 is a huge deal, especially in manufacturing. Easy assembly. Imagine trying to shove a perfectly square peg into a perfectly square hole. It's got to be lined up just right. But if you put a chamfer on the end of that peg, it acts like a little ramp. It guides the part right in, nice and smooth. It means faster production, less damage, and fewer mistakes. And finally, superpower number 3 is all about durability. That sharp 90-degree corner, it's a weak spot. It's the first thing to chip or crack if you drop something. But by creating a chamfer, you spread out the force of any impact across that wider angled surface. It makes the whole edge tougher and way more resistant to the abuse of everyday life.
And when you look at where they're used, you realize just how universal these things are. It's not just one industry. In metal fabrication, they're critical for safety and for getting edges ready to be welded. In construction, they keep concrete and stonework from chipping. And in woodworking, of course, they add a nice look and make for stronger joints. They are absolutely everywhere.
All right, so we know what a chamfer is and why it's so awesome. But how do you actually make one? Let's dive into how this hero gets its powers.
Well, it really all boils down to having the right tool for the job. The method you use completely depends on the material you're working with. For metal, you might use a heavy-duty machine called a chamfer mill. But for something like wood, the tools are probably a bit more familiar to you.
Yeah, for a material we all know, like wood, there are a few ways to do it. You could go old school with a hand tool like a block plane for really fine, precise work. For something faster and more consistent, you'd grab a router with a special chamfer bit. Or for big, straight cuts, you can just tilt the blade on a table saw to whatever angle you need. 3 different tools, all creating that same perfect edge. But, making a perfect chamfer isn't always a walk in the park. There are some real challenges. Machinists have to worry about something called chatter, which is vibrations that can mess up the finish. If your tool's worn out, you might get an uneven edge. And of course, harder materials are just tougher to cut. So quality control is a really big deal, making sure every single angle is exactly right.
So there it is, the full journey. We started with a problem, a sharp, weak, dangerous corner. And with just one simple, smart cut, we transformed it into an edge that's durable, safe, and incredibly functional. It's such a perfect little piece of elegant, problem-solving design.
And that really brings us to the big takeaway here. Now that you're in on the secret, where are you going to spot the chamfered edge next? Seriously? The next time you pick up your phone, look at where the screen meets the metal frame. Check out the legs of your chair, the handle on a knife. Once you know what to look for, you'll see this unsung hero of design absolutely everywhere.